Whether you keep them in your home or love to see them in theirs, these are the creatures that bring us all together.
Reptiles. We're going to be delving into the experiences of reptile lovers from around the block and around the world. This is the Reptile Talk Podcast. Boom. What is going on, everybody? This is Jeremy Turgeon from Brassman Reptiles.
And I'm Rob, and I'm keeping it real. My goal is to make you laugh at every intro, and it
You're off
works.
to a great start.
The people who are listening to the audio-only version are like, why is Jeremy always laughing
always
at the
laughing.
beginning
That
of the thing?
Dude, it's gonna be when I first started at Nerd all over again. That guy's too funny. He laughs too much. I can't deal with him.
Bruh.
Oh man.
For the people who are watching on YouTube, they see that I always dance to our
Yeah.
intro. I'm just like, I
That's
love
so
this.
true.
I like the music to it. So I'm always like dancing and being goofy.
It's
and then when
true.
the podcast, so Jeremy can't see me while it's playing. And then as soon as it stops playing, I pop on the screen and I'm just like wiggling in the view. And he's like, is there anyone else who wants to be the co-host of this show?
I literally never know what he's gonna do. So if you've never streamed on a streaming service, on the back end of this, in the studio, I have our three little screens on the bottom. Basically, just tells me who's here. So I see this little 1 inch by 1 inch square of Rob doing something, but I can never quite make it out. And then it pops up on the screen, and he's just doing whatever the fuck he's doing, and and I never know what it's really gonna be.
Well, I'm excited for tonight's episode. We have a very special guest on tonight, talking about some toidles and
Toidles.
I like
Toidles.
turtles.
I like the turtles.
No, he's much better about it than that. Tonight we've got Ed Komara from Komara Outdoors, and so welcome on the podcast. Boom,
Bam.
there he is.
What's happening, yo? I was gonna say, dude, you guys you started out, Rob, and I was like, dude, did you take my pre-workout or something like that, man? I was like, hey, I was like, you hit that vibe quick.
I'm just naturally an energetic person. Like Jeremy's seen it. When I get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm like this. Like it no matter what, I'm just like that.
And I'm not. I'm very much not. If you've ever seen that little video clip of like the two dogs where it's like, how are you in the morning? And there's one that's like perked up in the morning, and then the other one's like, I'm the one that's trying to get their life together, and Rob's the one that's bright-eyed and ready to go.
Look, I used to be just like that, like Rob almost, until my little one started coming into our bedroom and waking me up and ruining my sleep. Because I was fucking stripped, and then they come into bed, and I'm like, oh, dude, I already got the dog on top of me here, and I got the other kid on top of me here. I'm like, come on, man. Can I get another half hour of sleep, you know? So, yeah.
30 more minutes, please.
That's it, man. Yeah, so I'm running on like 5 hours anyway, you know? So.
Oh, man.
They're like, 3, take it or leave it.
Yeah, 3. Yeah.
Struggle's real, man. Struggle's real.
Oh, gosh.
Ed, for people who might not have heard of you, what kind of got you into the hobby and what brought you up into where you're at right now?
So I would say, it's a twofold. So what got me in the hobby particularly, hands down, reptile shows. In depth, but I will say, the game changer for me, where it all started, was I was 5 years old. All right. And this isn't like the cliche. Yeah, I used to go out back in the country, while my dad took me outside and getting snakes and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I did that. But even before all that, so 5 years old, my dad, his best friend, he was actually really into the reptiles. I'm talking about the sheet of like the priceless stuff that you don't. There's like old school. So I'm 5 years old. So you're talking about that's 28 years ago, and he had, dude, I go over there. My dad took me over there, and from caimans, alligators, all in the basement, just he had just about everything. But to lead off to what started my passion, really from the get go for terrapins, was he had two ornate snow white, no spot, snow white diamondback terrapin, ornate diamondback terrapins in a spotlight monster tank. They're just mesmerizing, dude. They were just,
Hell yeah.
so that's pretty much what got me started. Sorry about that. That's pretty much what got me started. It almost was instilled in me, without me knowing. So, fast forward, I was always hunting, fishing kind of kid, going out the backwoods and stuff. So, but when I was transitioning into high school, I got some good scholarships and stuff like that, but I actually ended up turning them all down because I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't know particularly, but I knew the route I wanted to take. So I actually went to college and I got my degree in wildlife resource management down in Southern Ohio. So I actually got my degree in management in the wildlife field. So from ecology to ornithology to dendro, I've done it all, which has helped me, especially in the hobby mindset, which I think is the biggest issue we're having nowadays, is that there's no one, a lot of people bridging the gap between hobby and conservation, right? That's the big issue we're having now. It's you can have a double-minded, but it's not being so extremist on either end, right? To do no one benefit. So that's kind of where I come into play, where I'm thankful that I got my education in it, but I'm also have been invested in the hobby since, I would say, high school. High school is usually when I started going to local reptile shows. And once obviously you guys know, from the first time you go in a reptile show, you think you are into animals, but
Yeah.
your mind is blown when you walk into the door. I don't care if it's like there's a hole in the wall stuff, back in the den, but I was like, still to see animals that you would drool over to see in the wild or just walk across, all laid out on tables. It's like this is like a candy store, So, but I've always been turtles. Turtles has been my thing, though. From day one, catching monster snapper turtles. Locally here, and just that's me and my dad. We throw trout lines and catch monster snapper turtles. We sold them. We weren't the ones making the turtle soup. So, but yeah, catching monster them. So yeah, the reptile shows is where it all started, man. And so I started using actually getting I had about, I think you guys probably can relate. You can get one of everything. You'll get one of everything. That's kind of where I start. Oh, that one's cool. That one's cool. That one's cool. The cheapos and next I had just about an arsenal even before I left college. So before I even left college, then I was realistic. I had okay, I got to get rid of these, and I had to find new homes for them, which I was in and of itself a pain. But then once I started college, I think it took about a year break until I found my local reptile shows down in Southern Ohio, and brought my friends around, and that's where the spark for specifically Diamondback Terrapins came back. Going around the tables, and you don't see them a lot at reptile shows. You don't at all. They were more common, I think, more in the past than they actually even more in the present, because a lot of old timers are getting out of it. And, there's the laws and people poaching. There's been a lot of issues with terrapins back in the day. Recently, not too long ago, but I've seen them for and it just jogged my memory back to those snow white ornates, and I'm like, man. So I picked one up, and I started keeping a couple of them in my college tank. So that was back in 2011. So I've been working with terrapins since that day for about 12 years. So that's kind of where what got me all started in the beginning. So especially with Diamondback terrapins. So
yeah, Diamondback terrapins are just such a special species of turtle. They're just so strikingly beautiful, and like people like turtles. Like most people are not like against turtles, but people who didn't feel one way or another about turtles, when they see one of those like white ornate Diamondback terrapins,
yeah,
it makes your jaw drop. They're just really, really
that
beautiful.
something like that is possible to like just there's no other turtle other than maybe like a monster snapper turtle. Don't get me wrong. There's no other turtle with just its sheer not even beauty, but just in and of itself, by itself. Yeah, I could show you anything of a terrapin, and it just be like, that's different. That's
Yeah.
everyone that comes by my tables when I display some of them, they're just like, that's different. There's something that just draws them in, like I've never seen like that before. And I think a key part about not only because their versatility of like 7 different subspecies and they all look the thing I kind of draw upon with them, especially with people and myself, that why I draw upon them the most is because their potential, but also the fact that every single one of them looks different. So a lot of animals, you breed them, they kind of look the same. Unless you get a morph or something, they pretty much almost look the same for the purity of that species. Diamondback terrapins, they're like fingerprints, man. Every single one of them has like a fingerprint of something different. None of them are the same. And that just makes them even more unique, that you can almost like personally pick one out that speaks to you because it just has some marking or some coloration. And that's where, that's where I feel like almost their personality then also comes to life in and of itself because of Diamondback terrapin. There's other turtle that has a personality, like them, which is rare to find with actually turtles, and because you can't just pick them up and just play with them, and pet them, but they have a personality while they're in the tanks and the tubs, and that's I think that's why I pick them to really dive in on, because I've even after college and moving down to Florida. So I moved down to Florida after graduating college, and I was a regional biologist down there for the Treasure Coast. So I did that, and then I started getting back into them a little bit, and just keeping some on the side because I was kind of a bachelor, do my own thing. Got my dog, got my turtle, what I'm saying? But didn't last too long before my wife came into play, and then my hobby kind of came almost full circle, even more in a realistic term, because I'm like, okay, my life is starting, right? So I'm like, if so I need to like either get what I want to get now. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, like, okay, like I need to like be serious now and, about this. And I think it got bad. I almost went back to before college days and a snapper, a soft shell, a snake.
Oh no.
I was just getting about everything and a couple more, obviously I was building up my Diamondback terrapin collection at the time too. But then it was like, then the real big moment was when our first daughter was about to, when we found out we were having our first daughter, and I'm like, okay, realistically, I look around, this can't happen again. And I was like, something, and this is, I think, what a lot of people don't do in a hobby, at least maybe from the beginning stages, is that they don't ask themselves the question that if they ask themselves this question from the beginning, it would save them so much, maybe money, a lot of trails, just even for the animal's sake. If you can work with one species for the rest of your life and be a master and just craft it, what would it be? What speaks to you the most?
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I answered that question, and it was 100% no holds barred, Diamondback terrapin. Because I've had my female for quite a few years now, and so like it was just like so I got rid of them all, and then I just dove in from that moment on, and I have not slowed down since. And so yeah, and especially because I found out that there's not a lot of people breeding them in the United States, like legitimate breeders with line breed and genes, and like legitimately doing it to have good stock and genes that aren't the because a lot of the Diamondback terrapin community, like there's most of the ones that are selling really good high quality stuff, they're selling it privately behind the scenes overseas, so so all the good stuff's going over there, so they're leaving the market wide open. I'm like, you know what, there's got to be a couple people that step up in this market and actually do it the right way and do them justice. And because the way I see it is like I'm getting tired because I get this a lot. I get a lot of people from Instagram stuff reaching out to me wanting one. Oh, do you have one like this? And the first thing they show me is something from overseas that they see. The first thing you type in Diamondback terrapin, you see it overseas, and I'm like, look, that's not. I won't say that's not realistic, but a lot of that stuff is like integration and manipulation. I say manipulation, but it's a lot of just they have scientists over there working for them. You know what I'm saying? So they're
Yeah.
serious about it, but a lot of them, they're not serious about what they put out. That this is pure line, right? I want to keep all my genes as pure as I can. That's not to mean I don't have my own, side experiments, and stuff like that. But as far as like what I give and what I sell to like the public, I want to have my stamp and name of approval, being like, hey, look, this is something that you're not going to get nowhere, but it's proven, legit, it's pure. Just like it holds its value, right? So that's kind of like why I want to pave the way and do it the right way, and that's why I've started building my brand of Komara Outdoors, and on the side, under that umbrella is like DBT. If you see my logo, that Adeline Robinson shout out, she did that tremendous
Oh
logo.
yeah.
Love
Hell
her,
yeah.
man. She's done a lot of my artwork, and it's all about I can go on rabbit trails and all day long like you can if we support each other. Bro. We support each other the best way we can, man. Dude, we lock arms, man. Dude, we look out for each other. So yeah, dude.
Hell yeah. I love
Love it.
Diamondback Terrapins are what, like I was saying, they're just one of those strikingly beautiful turtles. Like, but I think that like they've got that unique because like the whitish color on them is very unique. There's not a lot of reptiles that have like just naturally have that white or bright light skin color. It's almost like a
It's true.
bluish gray,
Yeah.
and
We
that
get
is just like
shade.
so striking.
Yeah, they get
What?
shade. I can pull a turtle out here that's the same species. One goes into a gray, into a purple, into a blue, and it's just absurd. It's like and there's
Yeah.
multitudes of that, so it's like
Yeah.
whatever hatches. I put it this way, to a lot of snake breeders and people out there that are into the morphs, it's almost like for me, like I don't have to produce a lot to get that wow, because every clutch, every egg
Mhm.
that hatches has the possibility and will be could just
That
produce
wow.
something crazy that I don't have to do this morph and oh I hope that I don't know what I'm gonna get out of it. It's like that with every clutch of Diamondback Terrapins, whether they're dude, I've had off the wall things that you wouldn't think look like they don't say dingy, in some regard, but nothing special, but
Mhm.
pop out like how'd that pop out that, right? Without even trying. So
Yeah.
it's like multiple males, because they can herd a swarm and for multiple males, and so they get integration of all these different males, and it's crazy that the possibilities with these guys, and we haven't even scratched the surface with them, man. And the problem with that is that they're still so low key and under the radar, and no one's pushing them.
Mhm.
Especially in the Diamondback Terrapin community, we've gotten a lot better. Me and my buddies that we've really grown the community up a lot more, but that's why I kind of separate myself always from the pack as far as like even with me guys talking to you guys, getting an opportunity to talk to you guys. Like it wasn't until I met some people like Ryan McVeigh and personally in Daytona years and years ago, and then getting introduced to the U.S. ARC, and just I'm like realizing like look, we got to stop being in this bubble in this community shell, and we got to like
Mhm.
don't be afraid to expand your capacity, knowledge, and just grow relationships with people outside the box because we're only going to help each other in the long haul. So too many
Yeah.
people want to go, here and there because it's comfortable. And it's like, well, dead end, dead zone,
Hmm. Yeah, I think that because like one of my favorite, I love the Diamondback Terrapins. I mean, my other favorite like U.S. turtle species is spotted turtles. But when people see spotted turtles, they don't go, "Wow, look at that!" They're like, "Oh, it's black and it's got some yellow
It's
spots on it.
spotted.
Okay, yeah, it's spotted, all right." They don't. It's not. It doesn't draw people in like the terrapins do. And I went to the Pine Knolls Aquarium on like the coast of North Carolina, and they had two Diamondback Terrapins in a brackish water setup. I sat there for probably 20 minutes just watching them swim around, and like they kept going after one another and like,
man.
harassing each other. And I'm like, man, this is just like we spent a lot of time there. We spent more time in front of the Diamondback Terrapin exhibit than just about any of the other exhibits in the entire place.
Well, that's even one of my things that I'm like, I've visited quite a few also, and I'm like, man, how many did no one, especially even the zoos. I'm like, how is it that even with the reptile houses, because I've worked at the Toledo Zoo, love it. Um, but even just the turtle, just there's just so limited on turtle
Diversity,
supply.
yeah.
Just there's none. You get some mud turtles, musk turtles. You get the basics, but
Yeah.
it's like, look, you're sitting on a diamond. I figure it's almost in comparison to the level of a sea turtle without the regulations, right? Like they have that
Yeah.
capacity, beauty, being a brackish water species, in the ocean. That's why I kind of relate to people. I'm like, get sea turtles, love them to death, but it's like, okay, we can calm down. They got enough funding, they got all that stuff. Like that's kind of
Yeah.
Yeah.
let's serve a little bit different more purpose than another brackish water turtle that isn't really well known. And dude, my mission is goal. I promise you, I want to get more. Even if I will supply them myself, I want to supply zoological institutes, nature centers, and stuff with Diamondback terrapins. Starting with my local nature center and getting them out there more. Because that exposure is what's going to make the difference. I want
Yeah. I think that one of the things that limits Diamondback terrapins, at least kind of where we're at, is that they're native to the East Coast of the U.S. And so a lot of states have regulations because they're a native species.
Mhm.
Some states just require permits for the keeping of any native species, and then some it's a certain number of them. So I think that that's one of the, at least for like East Coast, because I remember in Massachusetts, it was a big no to have Diamondback terrapins. They were
Yep.
like, no, you go to jail. You will go
Yeah.
straight to
Yeah.
jail if you
Right
have
to
a Diamondback
jail. Yeah.
terrapin.
Yeah.
And then I know that a lot of the other states are maybe a little bit more lax, but I know that from growing up in Massachusetts that they were just like, nope.
Sorry.
It's all good.
No, I kind of caught under my breath, Florida. So.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
All right,
Yeah.
we don't need to hide it. Florida, you fucking suck.
Look, yeah, I worked big times hand in hand with Daniel Parker down there. With the logo, Adeline did. Me and him worked on the
Yeah.
logo. He came to me, and I literally supplied him from X, Y, and Z, the shipping process to a T, everything I do and how I do it, from my
Yep.
setups to there was literally no room for error of that. You could think that that they still smuggle things with duct tape, like
Mhm.
Yeah.
from an old 80s photo. Like, come on, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
for real.
Yeah, but
they,
that's
but
the
they're just their mindset. But the cool thing is,
yeah.
like I tell people, I told Daniel, it's like, obviously I talked to Phil too, and he was like, until they get a new director, which is probably that's what's gonna happen, until then. But it wasn't a loss because I see it as that we at least stood up for something. We made a foundation to where when it gets brought up next time, we have like a lot more concrete and we're ready to rock and roll, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it's a hope, it's a dream, but let's say like we never give up. We haven't yet, right?
Exactly.
No, it's very true.
Exactly.
It's very true. Yeah, I was certainly bummed at how Florida handled that situation with the Diamondback Terrapins. I mean, FWC's narrative of wildlife trafficking and nothing good coming out of the captive exotics industry is very frustrating and
Misleading.
Well,
yeah, incredibly
and
misleading.
and it's crazy because you can literally take from the wild too. You like there was no like you can only have two captive born or there wasn't like no specific stipulation from a state
Mhm.
that's so gung ho about you can't keep, but yet in the regulation you can take two from the wild, right? So that didn't make sense from the beginning. So
Yeah.
that was more endorsing what they were trying to not happen, right? So, and then they're not even analyzing or putting any funding or any kind of anything. There's no funding or
Mhm.
no conservation for these terrapins to actually go out. And if you realize the mangrove population, which is the rarest kind, they're going to be gone for a while. They're still dispersed because of storms and everything like that. That they're going to be gone and underwater. Ornates are pretty well good, but I mean, the Questas, you don't even see them really much. The Questas on the East Coast at all. That's the only subspecies I have not worked with yet because, they're just really not available at all. And they're not really, I don't say look anything special, but they kind of blend in with, a little bit of, general kind of attributes. But yeah, man, it's not even contradicting. It's just like a blatant it's not the process of thinking anything rational is just not even there, So
Yeah, I mean, they're just not interested. I mean,
so,
literally comparing us to wildlife smugglers and poachers and stuff and getting an hour of that talk, and then it's like, all right, here's your 2 minutes and 30 something seconds to defend yourself against this PowerPoint that we really liked because there was pictures and we can't process words. So
I remember when the Diamondback Terrapin thing, just like the seminar, whatever, just got started getting introduced, like 2021 or something like that. It was just getting the first, introduced. And I remember, I think after the first meeting, and everyone get on and listen. And literally, I think it was within maybe a couple weeks, a month, or something like that. Afterwards, you've probably seen it, that the same guy that was like on, the main guy on the board, like opposing this, want to regulate it. The same guy that weeks or months or whatever later, they have an article that he wanted to tear down all this habitat where the manatees and everything are and build this hotel room, and then they got squashed immediately from the public because you can't touch that because of this habitat. Well, so
where's the same outrage for
so and you see the shutdown because animals, and that's also the problem with Diamondback Terrapins is that I've kayaked, you can go look for these suckers and you will not find them. Like I've kayaked the Keys, I've kayaked so many different places, and dude, it's only given me more of an appreciation for them because it's not like you're going out and flipping rocks or something like that, or whatever, like in a pond that you just can hope to see them bass. No, they're so elusive, and that's why they deserve even more credit because they've made it this long without even being seen.
So true, man. So freaking true.
So, but yeah, man. So honestly, one of my biggest things, because I've worked with just about all of them too, and my biggest thing, like if you probably people follow me at all, I actually realized because one of my buddies, JK Terrapins, he works for mainly ornates because I was in the ornates though too. But the thing with that is like it's a mutual respect, right? So in our community, it's so tight knit to where, especially some of the pioneers and stuff that are doing it, we're like, okay, we respect each other enough to where like, okay, dude, you got the ornate game lost. So guess what? I got out ornates. Let him take over. Me personally are mainly on concentrics, mainly the blues, and then mainly the Texan phenotype, Pileata, Litorales, and the Gulf Coast, because they don't look like anything special. And I say that, but you see my posts say otherwise, right?
Yeah.
But from the beginning, they didn't like what I started out with was black, spotted. They didn't have, a lot of people wrote them off. Like literally, even back in the day, when I first started, I'm like, it's almost like if jumping the gun, if you see something like whether it's in, you guys can relate, whether it's, whether in the snakes or whatever like that, you see like, oh man, like if somebody's writing something off, that means something. I should think about this more and dig deep a little bit on this, because it's like that's a niche that if someone's not willing to invest, then so because I've seen overseas and I've seen some of the more, they call them Texan phenotype, which is more Texan lime technically is more of it's kind of like a Pileata Gulf Coast still, because Texas is obviously you're not allowed to take from Texas, so technically Texans are illegal, but they're not because they're mixed into the bloodline of the Pileata, if that makes sense. So they're kind of intermingled to where they're to a point they're talking about being classified as just one subspecies, right? The only thing that separates the Texan phenotype is because of their characteristics, their bright colorations. When you see Pileata, the dark Mississippis, they're more of a dark. They got the the black mustache. They're just darker in general, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the Texas phenotype take that next step in that next role because they got that lighter kind of phase. So say they're even overseas, they can say, or even true Texans and all that stuff. Well, technically, yeah, but that's why I'm starting my own bloodline of that kind of type, the Pileata Texans, because I want to stray away from the Texan route and kind of create my own gene line, which I'm going to pretty much coin like that the Dalmatians, because I figure they're calling their stuff overseas like the pandas. If you type in panda, Back Terrapins, dude, they look like pandas, But
Yeah.
I feel like what I'm like. We need to do the best we can do for bring our turtle home, right? That's the way I see it. Bring our turtle home, and these are our animals, so we should be producing the best, right? We are producing the best, but those are the people that are low key selling over there, so they're not showing and they're not selling to here, which is fine. Do you, right? But that's opening the market for here. So I'm like, you know what? That's why I'm pretty much one of the only U.S. breeders probably that I know of, other than low key selling to the public this kind of phenotype as dialed in gene wise.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting when it comes to those topics because like a lot of people take for granted our native wildlife in the US. And you know when I think of like corn snakes, I'm like, corn snakes, you can just kind of go out and catch those, like there's nothing really that interesting about them. And then when
Yeah.
you see the stuff that people in Europe are doing with corn snakes, I'm like, what the heck, look at that freaking thing. It's like
Yeah.
now it's changed a little bit now where there are people in the US doing cool things with corn snakes. But another one is that I think of is like crotalids. If you think about like crotalids are a very new world type thing, but a lot of people in Europe have specialized in crotalids and they're making these phenomenal
Crazy.
looking
Yeah.
rattlesnakes. And then over here, we're like, it's a cane break. It's this. It's that.
Yeah.
You know,
Taking
we
it
kind
for
of take it
granted.
for granted. Huge, and there's all this opportunity for us to, show that appreciation and really work on our own lines. We have access to a lot of this stuff still. So, like, the fact that Europe is blowing us away on US native snakes is just crazy, and like and turtle
Yeah.
and all that sort of stuff. Oh, people overseas are breeding our stuff better than we are. How does that happen?
Well, I think it happens because, like, my mindset, it's like if 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 it's easier to get, then you kind of obviously take it for granted, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, that. But if we were to like some of the species that we brought over from here to here, those are kind of the more like high value, kind of like the ones everyone so wants to work with and dial in because hey, guess what? Either they look great or here.
Money. Yep,
So,
it boils down
so
to money.
exactly, you got to be real about it. So that's why I'm like if we did, ourselves, the best way, other than even a hobby, can do self justice is just look at the animal and the breed, and like it doesn't take long to dial in on a gene. Like you see with some of the top people and some of the the different markets, whether it's Canova or whatever, like they just dialed in on one thing, man. And if someone found their niche, like and wholeheartedly chase after it, and our native species, like I feel like our hobby would do a lot more better, do it more justice, and promote it a lot better because you know, you want to find the people that have that true heart and that true passion, and not just be a jack of all trades. Don't get me wrong, you can have all kinds of stuff. I got all my animals ambassadors, but the only species I breed for is Diamondback Terrapins, right? And I'm not to say you
Right.
can't do more if you have the capability, but man, dude, like find what you love and take the time to to find that, right? I mean, there's so much endless possibilities, and so much untapped. And these guys, we got like I talked today in the expo, the hunting fishing expo today, and so many people think that oh, is that a morph or is that this? And I'm like, well, this is yeah, but it's just not like a normal albino berm, and it's like they're asking pricing and stuff like that. So it's like that stuff's out there, but it's just a matter of
Mm.
you know getting people enough aware of this kind of community, like the hunting fishing
Yeah.
community, the marine community, like I went there on a whim, last day notice, and I did not stop talking. Like people just, and I didn't bring anything special. I brought a leopard tortoise, albino berm, and I brought a bearded dragon, and I brought T-Bone, and obviously everyone just didn't want to move past T-Bone,
Yeah.
but it's crazy to think even this how many years, 40 years later, 50 years later, we're in this industry, and it's like they're still not that people think they're still just exotics and wild animals. I'm like, they're not wild, they're just as domesticated as the next dog or cat, it's just like we just got to try to shift people's mindset from that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all preconceived notions, and when you show people that actually this turtle, this snake is, 8, 10, 20 generations removed from the wild, you know, it's even, equally removed as some, indoor cats are removed from the wild. Like we are working with something
Dog
that
breeds aren't
is not what people think about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
so
Exactly.
like, come on, man. There's no difference there other than they're just under the Department of Ag, and that's why on the table I put the U.S. Ark stuff, and they're like, "What is this?" And I'm like, I was like, you do realize that keeping these reptiles is not a right? It's a privilege, and
Yeah.
once I kind of give them a little thing of like especially perfect example, the Lacey Act. I said,
Yeah.
Yep.
A couple months ago, guess what? This wouldn't have been possible. So
Mhm.
it's just people. I think when you get to that extremity, actually getting way more involved with USARC is what actually made me start my educational programs, without a doubt.
Heck
Other
yeah.
than the fact of wanting to impact kids' lives and stuff, a part of me was like, you know what? After especially talking a lot with Ryan McVeigh, one of my good buddies, him, he he's the forefront runner, putting in the grind work, of make
Yeah, for real.
his city, or not city, but his state, and in Wisconsin and stuff like that. So it was like, and he's like, dude, you got to get a community behind you. You get communities, and you get this, and then you come to the state, like things, want to come down the pipeline. It's like you want to become their guy to where I can bring schools, I can bring all these people that I'm their guy. You want to try to pass this law? Well, guess what? You're gonna have a little bit of fight on your hand.
Mhm.
Just a
from the public.
little.
Yeah, from the public. So that's kind of like I was like, that's kind of like building an army, man. And it takes building an army to go outside of the box and outside the army and recruit, not just staying in the army thinking you can recruit, because that's not working, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think
Exactly.
that you got the foot up because in doing programs for over 15 years, I found that you bring out a good sized snake and people are like, oh, that's interesting. You bring out a lizard, even if it's a bright colored one, people are like, oh, that's cool. But there is nothing that makes a child lose touch with their mind and reality and everything else in around them like a turtle. I don't know what it is about
True.
turtles, but they have a deep connection to children, and children have a deep connection to turtles. And when I did educational programs, people would be excited to hold a big snake, but if they got to see a turtle, or like you show them how a turtle can flip itself back over if it lands on its back, that's it. That's the
Yeah.
best
That's
part of
it.
the whole
The whole thing.
program.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they
Day's
remember
made.
about the program, and
Yeah.
everyone's day is made.
It's so true. We do need to take a quick break for our ad break. So we will be right back in 2 minutes. Black Box Cages, located in Buford, Georgia, is your one-stop shop for all of your caging and rack needs. Owners Jen and Clint are at the helm of this fantastic company. With one of the shortest lead times in cage and rack manufacturing, Black Box can satisfy anyone's needs. From baby racks to V70s, arboreal and terrestrial caging to deep-fronted bioactive enclosures. You can find everything you need right here. New enclosure sizes and products are added frequently to their availability, so be sure to check back often. Black Box Cages have tons of customizing options for lighting and heating. Along with that, cages and racks can be stacked with metal stacking dowels, and all cage joints are dadoed for improved durability and stability. Most cage units are flat packed, but are pre-assembled prior to shipping to ensure a solid build every time. The Micro, XC18, XT3, BioG, and 3-stack V70 ship assembled, and all other racks are shipped freight and assembled. The XR16 and XR20 model racks allow keepers to mix and match tubs. Fitting both Vision and Freedom Breeder tubs, you can mix the V15, V18, and V35S tubs, or the FB5, FB8, and FB35CV-SC tubs. This kind of flexibility allows keepers to raise their animals from hatchling to juvenile or subadult size before needing to upgrade into adult caging. Don't just take our word for it. Go to their website to see countless customer reviews and review videos from keepers all over. To learn more about Black Box Cages, follow them on Facebook and Instagram at Black Box Cages, and of course their website, www.blackboxcages.com. Links to their socials and website will be available in the podcast description. Boom. So you guys know the deal. Go check out Black Box Cages. Go check out their website because they're always adding new products available. And go get yourself a new cage because we all need more animals, right? Isn't that why we do this?
I mean,
Found that out real quickly. I'm like, I gotta build a little bit of an arsenal. That's another thing that kind of helps getting outside your box is that I know who to talk to, right? You get to know who to talk to, the right people, and hey, if I want, a green anaconda, or if I want, whatever you might say. A lot of mine, turn into rescues, so it's like, it's just, we can all benefit like that, just kind of like growing those relationships. So
yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
So,
yeah, you never know who knows who, and you never know what they know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what do you guys, as far as like to give a gauge, if we want to talk and dive in a little bit more on the terrapins instead of just kind of just shooting a breeze, what do you guys know about them, or do you have any kind of like, I don't want to say questions, but like, is there certain things that are kind of like still mysterious kind of aspect to you guys, or maybe we can kind of draw up a little bit of a conversation on
discussing on them. I mean, I really like them. I've heard that a lot of people keep them brackish water, but you can do them in fresh. Have you noticed any difference as far as how you keep them, if you keep them fresh or brackish?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So what I recommend, or what I do, so I did fresh in the beginning, and then because I was like, not into the whole not say dialed in, but like experimental phase, right? I was just like, they're working, it's working, whatever. And then when I started doing brackish, I realized how clean the water was kept, how nice the shell and was looking without a lot of maintenance, and it was just like almost a no-brainer switch. Now I will say that like these guys in the back, my rack system, these guys are all grow outs, so I got them classified from subspecies and from age. And what I do is like, I usually don't introduce brackish. I tell people, so when they get a hatchling, I said, okay, keep on fresh water, right? Because what happens is you want to keep them hydrated, and that's the biggest thing for baby turtles. You want to make sure they're hydrated. So I don't switch to brackish until the first year. That way they have good solid growth on them, to where then I introduce a little bit of salinity. Then I kind of increase it to where, you can't see it now. When during the springtime, I'll have to get back on the podcast and really show you my big monster setups in the garage. I got large waterland tubs just stacked. And then I got a big monster 1,600-pound sandbox monster house for a lot of my other adults. They're all on pretty high, medium high salinity. But the thing is that once I switch them, adults are all brackish. But the thing that I think separates what I do is that I know even some of my buddies don't do, because it takes work and it takes investment. But turtles are messy, right?
Very.
They are. That's why most people don't want to even touch them, because of the maintenance of the water quality. I am very, very particular, and I hate that. Right? I'm very, very particular. So I literally, from all my babies, all my hatchlings, all my juveniles, all my adults, I feed outside of their containers. Every single one of them.
Oh,
wow.
Man.
I take a time to feed probably about 50, 60 on an average, and that's not even including during
Damn.
that's not even including during hatchling season when I can up upwards to almost 100. I feed separate enclosures because I just bust, because the cool thing about to go, I'll get off on a tangent afterwards, but the cool thing is that it's a lot of work when it's breeding season, when it's time, but you get an off period with these animals, which is even greater. So I'll touch on that afterwards. But I feed in all. I'll bust out all the kiddie pools, put all the kiddie pools out there, filling up with some, not halfway, just enough water to let them eat. And my wife jokes, and I'll say jokes. She's serious about it, but she's very, very serious about it. She's like, these turtles eat better than we do because I feed them shrimp, salmon. Obviously the staple Missouri aquatic turtle food, but like they're in breeding season, I'm trying to get them big, have enough meat on them for the eggs to lay. Because what happens is once that's done, it's from November till March, it's brumation time. I brumate all my adults. So I invest a lot of time, money, investment, just to feed and separate and enclosure, feeding and stuff like that. But I know once November hits, till about March is when they start waking up. I brumate them. I don't have to do anything for 4 or 5 months. So I actually get a nice recovery break from the adults. These guys don't stop me. But so it's kind of like it's a toss up, but it's nice because like with these species that once you get them to that capacity and this magnitude, at least with adults, you have that accessibility. Like I'm in Ohio, which is nice because you still have you can have the extreme attempts, but I know people that keep them outside. I would never do that because I'm so particular and invested so much into my animals that I want to have some kind of control and manipulation over the process. So I don't like to let them experiment with the elements. So they're in the garage, so they still deal with the temps, and I monitor their temps for brumation. So they're starting at 70 some degrees, and then once it starts to get colder out, probably around mid-November. This was actually a little bit later, so maybe late November, December. I threw on the heaters, and I monitor and I drop their degrees about 10 degrees. As the gradually to acclimate them until they hit about high 50s. 59 is usually around the lowest I go, and then they just shut off. So either they bury themselves in the substrate, or most of the time not. 75% of them, they just hunker down in the bottom of the water and they just go to bed. So, and that helps with the natural cycle, breeding. Because guess what, bro? The moment springtime hits, I toss them males in there, bro.
They're on it.
Time. So when you get them on that cycle, when it's almost like humans, it's like if you give them that time of period of rest and you separate them and you're not always around them to where, bro, and I'm not saying like if you're always around a female, it's like, you kind of it gets a little bit like, I'll say boring, but redundant, right? But it's like, if you got a time period that you got do your work when you got to, well, guess what, man? Make it count, So that's kind of idealistic. And I actually took that from a breeder over in the UK that breeds. She's been breeding for over 20 years, and she has some of the best genes of concentric centrata out of anybody. And she started with just a bare basic, and that's how she does it. She takes her males out, and that's what I did an experiment this season for one of the first times to let my females get a rest even for brumation. And I'm going to throw, because I got some high quality males in here that are actually ready to get in the breeding process. And so I'm excited for this year, not only for this year, for some crazy new genes, but to experiment, see how that works, So hopefully, hopefully I'm overloaded with turtles. Hopefully I'm not, but so that brackish water is a good question, because hydration's key. But like I said, the ones that are like the adults that are in brackish, since I feed outside of their enclosure, they always will get access to fresh water. I feed my adults usually about 3 times a week. So they'll have about 2 solid days during the week to feed on good quality protein, shrimp, fish. But then I give 2 days during the week to throw in pellets and aquatic Missouri. So they're spoiled when they know it's kiddie pool time and they get the goods, but when they're in their enclosures, they kind of get the sporadic, pellets and stuff like that because they're like, well, I know I'm not getting the good stuff, so I got to eat this stuff. So and that's the cool thing about these things, man. That you're like, man, you son of a gun. I'm like, you catch on to that stuff quick,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it's like a
That's
discipline.
awesome.
They're like kids, man. It's funny because they're just like kids, man. No matter how big they are, they just get personality. So yeah. So as long as they have access to that fresh water, that's kind of key. So and
So
that's
now
also.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say one more thing just before it gets off my, because whoever's listening, because I just want to hit on one big thing with hatchlings, because the biggest misconception, I don't know if you guys know, especially with terrapins, is that they don't. I don't offer a basking spot until their first year.
Really?
They don't require basking. So if you think about it in the wild, in their natural environment, hatchlings are easy prey. They're the easy pickings, right? You're never going to see hatchlings basking in the wild, especially terrapins. Where are they at? They're underneath the tidal rack, underneath the seaweed, on the banks. They're eating all the little, microorganisms, the little insects. That's where they're feeding, and that's where they're staying because they're safe and they're secluded. So they're not actually, they don't need to bask. So that's what a lot of people, I need a basking this, I need this, I need that. Well, no, you actually don't. If I were to show you, I got the Waterland tub now, but for my babies, I get those, like I have a rack system back there for the babies. I have them in those like 22 quart from Tractor Supply, those quart bins that are like, they get maybe 3-4 inches of water max. You throw a ton of fake plants in there, keep that water between 80, 83 degrees, keep the metabolism going when they're babies, throw in just a whisper, nice stand up, water filter, because you don't need anything big when they're hatchlings. And they're good. They're good, man. I offer a UVB, but I don't offer a basking spot. And because what happens is I've been getting this issue the past couple of years, and I show people, hey, look, you buy this. This is how my setups are. I can tell people until they're blue in the face, how to do it. You guys can probably vouch. That doesn't mean they're going to do it, right?
Yeah,
true.
So when they contact me and, hey, my turtle looks, a little off. It's scratching its eye. Its eyes are puffy, and it's just looking lethargic. And I'm like, okay, well, send me your setup. And they're more willing to spend $200 on a fancy house, little aquatic setup at the pet store, and they're drying themselves out on this thing under the heat lamp. And I said, no. I said, get rid of that. Buy that quart. It's $20. Put some plants in there. And they said within a week, it's like, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, guess what? I know what I'm doing. Yeah.
Like, I don't, like, my name. This is everything I got. This is my name, my brand. Like, I take this so seriously that I set them up to where there is no excuse that you can't prosper with your animal. There is no excuse. Unless it's totally something outside the box. When you get your animal, they might be hatchling late, midsummer, but I don't even offer my hatchlings up until late summer, usually more in the fall, because I want solid growth on them. I want them feeding like carnivores. I want them just like ready to go. So when you get your animal, the moment that hits the water, it's go time.
Heck yeah. So I'm curious now. So the year mark, right? What got you to being like, okay, well, I don't need to provide them this until they're a year old. So getting the brackish water happening, and then providing basking. I certainly understand that after you explained it. But as far as like starting to get them into that brackish water, why wait a full year?
So a year is tentative. I give a year is tentative for me. I have the way I feed, like, if it's different from maybe everyone. I kind of bulk mine up to make sure I want to get that weight on fast. I usually get mine within, like, these guys are just switched to brackish. They were hatched in June. So what is that? 7 months?
8 months,
7 months, yeah.
So they're now on brackish because,
okay,
I'll show you real quick. So this is around the size where you want to have them about 3.5 inches. You know,
Oh hell yeah.
so
Yeah.
Good size, yeah.
this is a good size. Where sorry, I'm trying to do this, but this is about the size that you want them, to start. Anything
Yeah.
probably about half of that, they're still very sensitive. Like I got a female in there that was hatched the same time as these guys, and let's see if I can find her. So she was hatched the same. She was hatched the same time, but look at the size difference.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So she's about half the size, right?
Yeah.
So
Easy.
her technically, I would not be switching to brackish, but since she's doing really well and she's getting finally packing on growth, I know she can take it. But if you notice, she actually, when I first switched her, her scoots are starting to have some dry spots on him because she actually dried herself out really early on, and that kind of takes a while to go away a little bit. But you notice with this one, not a mark. It just
Yeah.
grew exponentially and all that stuff. So you always have those runts of the litter. I didn't think she would be. I didn't think she was gonna make it. Honestly, like she was taking forever. She was eating, but taking
Damn.
forever. So that year mark is very tentatively because 3 months, 4 months, like she'll get to that size. It's gonna take more time. So that
Yeah.
year is tentative to where most of them I don't have an issue getting this big pretty quickly within the first 6 or 7 months. But I have a process in the way I do it to where mine is kind of expedited, and I give that year to the client and the customer because you got to have some buffer room, right? If you be like,
Right.
hey, it's
Right.
exactly 6, 7, well, then they're gonna be like, well, you told me.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Fair.
you
Fair.
know, right? You know that. You
Yeah.
know that.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. No, that's cool. That's super interesting. I didn't know if there was like if the year was like okay, well
Size
now
or
they're good. Right. Exactly. So yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's actually super interesting.
Yep. Yeah, because I mean, you figure so those guys were last. This was this past June, right?
Hmm.
And these guys are last year's. So you're talking about 2 years. These are males. So
Hmm.
males, these are going to go in already in the breeding stock already at 2.5 years old. So a lot bigger. He's already at the
Yeah.
5 inch mark. This is
Yeah.
last year's. This is last year's hatchling.
Damn.
Damn, that's a pretty
So
freaking
he's
turd.
already going to be ready for breeding. So
Yeah.
Hefty.
in comparison, that's a year difference. But look how much bigger and ready to go. I mean, look, tail dropped. Look at his tail. His tail's dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's ready to rock and roll. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. It's just it's the process of getting to know your animals and everything like that. But like I pack like when I know what I keep is going to be prime, to where I
Mhm.
know I have a process to where I know I can get them to eat and to kind of not bulk them up. I hate that's not the right part of word to say, but kind of get that size on naturally. Because honestly, bulking up, I feed up until 2 years ish. So them guys right now, I actually just now switched. I usually from the juvenile to between juvenile and subadult, somewhere in between there. I actually
Mhm.
switched from feeding from every day to every other day because what happens
Mhm.
is what happen is they get kind of almost, and it's a weird way, at least mine, they get used to eating, right? So I'll go through
Oh
all
yeah.
this effort and realize that they won't touch their food every day once they get to a certain size, and they're like they just don't have that ferocity to need, right? And that
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
reminds me of my turtles, but I found that to be pretty consistent over the years. So why waste my time on every day? I still feed the top rack yearlings until they're going to get to that stage every day to make sure they get to that stage, and then every other day, and then guess what? The adults. So there's 3 lines of systems. I go from every day to every other day with the juvenile to subadult. Then once they're the adults, they don't need to eat every day. I don't. They
Yep.
don't. Yeah, maybe here and there I'll throw some pellets. They're almost like puppy dogs. Like, yeah, I could throw you a bone. Yeah, no, I have no
Yeah.
problem.
Right. Right. Right.
Mhm.
But as far as like feeding, I don't need to do that, right? Because
Yeah.
the biggest thing, it kind of goes back into the elements and still keeping them with brumation, and I still like to keep, as much as I have control over these guys, I still like to keep them a little bit of a natural instinct of depending on themselves of survival, to where they 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 grow a hardiness to them, to where, dude, I'm not. I used to, but I'm not now such a clean freak about my water,
Mhm.
because
Mm.
I let it get a little bit tinted and stuff, because guess what? If you're one of those people that I know, there are people I know. I'm not gonna name any names, but I know there's people out there that are so dogmatic about that clean water. They spend till 2, 3 in the morning making sure it's got to be clean, crystal clean. Well, guess what? That's no different than you being kept in your house, never being exposed to the elements, never, not say get sick, but you want to adjust them to become a little bit hardy, to where they have a tolerance and an immune system, right?
Right.
Yeah,
So,
you gotta
Yeah.
figure that in the wild, they're not getting babied like that. Come on, they've evolved millions of years to live in
well,
swamps and slipstreams and, these
that's my thing. Like, I love these guys. They're my babies. But guess what? I just like my kids at home. I give them a little bit of tough love, and I love to. I like to challenge them because it challenges me. Because then in return, it I get to know them a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
Yeah.
and it doesn't become such a robotic, systematic. Like, all my animals, no matter whether they're hatchlings or adults, I give the same care to every one of them, to where literally, like, they're not just like turtles. Like, not one kind of gets lost in the mix, if that makes sense. I see
Yeah.
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
one of
Yeah.
them for what they are, and they have the uh, same attitude, personality, like personality. They have just that same, because once I get some and add them to the group, it's very quick. It's funny because I can have one that will just be introduced to the group, and within a month or two, they are just boom on point, like in with the group, like so
Yeah.
systematic, because they just fit right in. They're like puppy dogs. Like boom, boom. I have one of these the pole sticks, and I'll just tap the side, dude. They all come sliding down on
Oh,
the.
yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's a cool process. I'll have to show you guys come springtime and summertime when they're, when it's really fun. I can show you some cool stuff. But yeah, it just get to know your animals, and that's why I realize if I can still manage doing this even at this
Mm.
low capacity, it takes more work, but dude, like, the investment with the animals, you get to know them so much more, like, than
Mhm.
trying to have tons of them, because, like, that's one big thing. I might be I consider myself a really good breeder, and in the line, the field with the Diamondback Terrapins, but um, I never want to get to the point where I'm reliant on them for anything of me, or
Yeah.
I'm reliant on them, right? So,
Right.
take for example, like, my big female that I've had for 9 years. I raised her from a hatchling. She's a honker now. Actually, Adeline Robson, you've probably seen. She's the one that did the artwork of her. Her
Mhm.
name's Big Mama. She has not, other than this past year, given me a fertile clutch. So, starting from 5 years old, and this girl has single clutch 15. The next year, double clutch 10 and 10. The third year, triple clutched 10,
Wow.
10, 10, 10, 10 within
Damn.
within a month of each other, and not fertile until the next. So does that mean that?
Damn.
But then you go relationship aspects. So it's like, okay, like, yeah, that's upsetting, but does that take away her value to me? Right. So,
Yeah.
like, I don't
Right.
depend on her for eggs, right? Like, if you give me, that's amazing, and I want to continue your line just like all these other guys. But I never want to get to a point where, dude, don't get me wrong, full time breeding, that sounds like a dream, and it's great. But I don't want to rely on my animals to give me something in return for, everything I do, because
Yeah.
it keeps that balance of, like, why I'm doing it for the first place. That's why I started doing educational programs and getting outside the box and get some other animals, and kind of sparking my new passion coming to life, and making an income doing that. Still loving what I do with animals, and I can still keep breeding, kind of more of a hobby kind of, aspect, where I can do just as well quality and be just as good in what I do, but not have a demand on them.
Hell yeah.
Right.
That's where it's
That's
at. Because a lot of times when you tie that dollar value and to this is how I eat my food, it takes the fun out of it real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's all about paperwork and this and that, and it's just
Yeah.
you just get a little bit more. You get upset enough if an egg's not fertile, right? You don't need to double,
Yeah.
triple that kind of emotion, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's just like
Uh,
agonizing, right? So
yeah.
so but yeah. So and any other questions you guys got? That maybe missing because that's really good because those are kind of things that I can talk about, but like if those are things that you guys actually have questions, and I'm sure that's the same people that are gonna have the same kind of questions, then even if
yeah.
we start from like how to set them up and just anything and everything, dude, that's kind of like my mentality. I'm like, I love to get not just hey, look, I love terrapins, this is what I work with, but like I want people to get something really hearty out of this because yeah, I feel like even that's why not to give a side note shout out, but that's even what was a no-brainer for me when I got presented the opportunity for and it going back to the enclosures, right? I got tired. Don't get me wrong, those things work, but I was tired of people like just not having a really good resource for them, right? And
Yeah.
especially because you're not going to find because aquatics are so, especially turtles are so. You can use whatever you find almost, but like what is the what is the best systematically that it's versatile and just works like hands down. You can't invent the wheel again. Waterland tubs.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can't. You can try. People have tried, and you can't. You can replicate it, but it's just very reinventing in a wheel. So when Pete,
Yeah.
Danson and Callie, represented, the opportunity to become a distributor, the Mideast distributor, I was like, yo, I don't care about the money compensation as much as I care about now. Dude, I can give someone a good quality animal. I can give them backing. Hey, here's the enclosure you want to get. Boom, 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 X, Y, and Z. You're set up for life, almost essentially, if you really want to put it to that extreme.
True.
You want to offer people the whole package. People want to stop at the moment that animal ships with no communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like I put free stickers in my stuff. I go balls to the wall with my, when you're getting an animal from me, I want that to be the best experience of your life. Not only because you spent a good amount of money on it, but a free sticker goes a long way to where, dude, this dude's cool. You got a client, you got a customer, a friend for life.
Yeah.
Dude, free food to set them up, like set them up, man.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
So yeah,
Customer relations goes a long way.
For real.
yeah, because dude, I can't tell you how many times like my best people that I talk to that I've grown relationships with are the people that are the ones that referred me and throwing me out on TikTok and just putting me out there to where I don't have to be like a one-man band anymore and think I have to post so much for exposure. They're doing it for me.
Right.
Yep.
Don't be so hard pressed if you're not doing. You want the same kind of thing going on for you and people giving you credit, but you're not putting the work on the flip side to get them amped up or excited to do that. You know what I'm saying? People are going to do that when they're like freaking ecstatic, right?
Yeah.
So,
So true. So true, man.
Yeah, man. So,
Hell yeah.
oh man, but.
All right, so we're actually winding out our hour. We were a little over, but that's okay. So we have one question that we round out every episode with the guests that we've got on, and that question is: in the realm of reptiles, whether it be something that you're working on yourself or something you've seen somebody else working on online or something that you're involved in or whatever, what in the realm of reptiles has got you excited about reptiles right now?
Anything other than just reptiles in general. It could be just in general in the community.
Anything. Yeah,
absolutely.
The thing that's got me most excited is I would say the people I'm meeting.
Hell yeah.
Heck yeah, dude.
Hands down, because obviously I've gotten the past couple of years way more out there, but it's almost like you just touch the surface. I think and I say that there's a reason why I say meeting people and and stuff like that is because you can meet someone like this right here, right?
Yeah.
But not meet them, right? There's a difference.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I went to my first Dude, don't castrate me for saying this, but this past Tinley in October was my first Tinley experience, right?
That is okay. I still know some
Yeah.
people who have never been.
That's
So,
true. Yeah.
and so I drove 8 hours. I took time and I was like, yo, I'm going, right?
Heck
And
yeah.
and dude, I eh, I hate to put it such on a pedestal, but man, like I've been to so many, but it's like even Daytona, Orlando, but like it would, but you know what? It wasn't that it was so crazy awesome overall. You know what made it so special is because the previous couple years before that, I invested in grown relationships with so many different people leading up to that fact, where I wasn't so excited about what I'm going to see. I was excited about finally personally meeting the people that I already got connected with.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely everything, dude. Changes everything. So I think after that, I'm like, it's going to be a commitment to really get more out there from that experience of like getting to meet more people, connecting with them personally level, getting to know, you don't know someone, their heart, until you just get that connection, call me
Yeah.
cliche, but dude, I'm a real, wear my heart on my sleeve kind of real dude, to where if you got me as a friend, you got me for life, no matter who, what, when, hair, whether it's a reptile or not, I got your back, and I give the same replicated, for the people, that I've grown relationships with also in the community, and I'm excited to keep doing that kind of aspect because that's only going to make us stronger. We can only all benefit from it. So that's definitely without a doubt what I would say.
Hell to
Hell
the
yeah.
yeah, man. That's
Hell
tight.
yeah.
I want to echo that. That's where it's at.
Yeah.
If people want to find out more about you and the things that you're working on, the things that you're doing, where should they follow you online?
Yeah, so you guys can check me out at Komara Outdoors. It's under the little thing from Instagram, Facebook. I dabble a little bit with TikTok. I try to, give a little bit of something out there, but but then also, dude, as much as I say Komara Outdoors and not, and all that stuff, but honestly, man, if you really want to connect with me, and this kind of goes to the flip side of what I just said, send me a friend request on Facebook, man, on my personal one at Ed Kamara Jr. Just send me a friend request, send me a message, whether it's saying hi or just or whatever, man. That's kind of where my heart is. Like, man, dude, I really value and appreciate people that just go on a limb to reach out to someone, because I'm sure you guys can vouch. Like, you guys reached back out to me, right? Like it's almost like, who am I? But like you were willing to talk to me and take a minute out of
Oh,
your
hell
day to
yeah.
respond. That goes
Yeah.
so much longer for people. So I always, echo that to people, like, hey, look, I'm always a resource. I'm always here, man. You're just not an email or a message in my inbox. So
Hell yeah.
Heck yeah.
That's where it's
That's
at, man.
awesome, dude.
Thank you so much for coming on tonight. This
Yeah.
is a lot of
Thanks so
fun.
much, man.
We'll have to double back and do some springtime stuff and some breeding stuff when
already,
you get into it.
already happened. You better load it up.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, dude.
Hi, man.
Word.
Thank you for coming
One
on.
last thing, you guys got a flex for me, man. Give me a flex shot, especially Jeremy. Come on,
Oh, flex shot. Oh
come on.
I got the SpongeBob arms, the ones
man.
that
Come
like
on.
little
Yeah, the SpongeBob arms.
Look, I had to like kind of just throw it. Look. I got him embarrassed again. He's doing his thing. Look, we on it on a good note, right?
Yeah, it's
always,
perfect.
always,
It's so
always.
perfect.
I appreciate
Hell
you guys.
yeah, dude.
I really appreciate
Hell
you guys.
yeah.
Good
Hell
talking.
yeah, man.
And I'm looking forward to
Absolutely.
meeting you in person one day. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
all
Word.
right.